Hi and welcome back to another YouTube video, and today we're finishing up our series on Rhaegar Targaryen, and without further ado, let's begin. The tourney of Harrenhal was held in 280 or 281 AC, and some believe that the tournament was secretly funded by Rhaegar and that it was a pretext for him to meet with great lords and arrange a great council to remove his father from power. After Varys notified Aerys of this, the king decided to attend. And during the tourney, Rhaegar seemed unstoppable. He unhorsed many a men, one of them being Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning himself. But he passed over his wife and instead crowned Lyanna Stark, the Queen of Love and Beauty. Ned remembered the moment when all the smiles died, when Prince Rhaegar Targaryen urged his horse past his own wife, the Dornish princess Elia Martell, to lay the Queen of Beauty's laurel in Lyanna's lap. He could see it still, a crown of winter roses, blue as frost. The next year, Rhaegar was told to have kidnapped Lyanna Stark, and that was the catalyst for Robert's rebellion. And some say that Rhaegar spent the beginning of Robert's rebellion in Dorne with Lyanna. Aerys sent for his Kingsguard to retrieve Rhaegar, and he returned to the Crownlands, also taking control of the Targaryen fleet after Jon Connington's quite pathetic defeat. Sir Jaime Lannister was left at the Red Keep to ensure the safety of the royal family, and this still haunts Jaime to this day. You can read in his chapters how he's haunted by the fact that he couldn't keep Elia and her children safe, that he'd failed Rhaegar in that essence. And Rhaegar was so sure that he would live. Everyone was so sure that he would come back. And I think even the last words that Jaime spoke to Rhaegar wasn't of a goodbye. It was more like Rhaegar said, "We'll talk about this when I return," and he never returned. Rhaegar fought Robert Baratheon during the Battle of the Trident. He was glorious, but he was struck down with a massive blow from Robert's warhammer. Rubies flew like drops of blood from the chest of a dying prince, and he sank to his knees in the water, and with his last breath murmured a woman's name. Rhaegar fought valiantly, Rhaegar fought nobly, Rhaegar fought honorably, and Rhaegar died, Ser Jorah tells Daenerys, and I think this quote perfectly illustrates how you can do everything right from the start. You can have all the good intentions, all the right intentions, and you can be noble and you can be honorable and you can be valiant, but you will still die. Things will still go wrong, because that's the way of life. Everything is unpredictable. You can't just expect that it's going to go well because you have the good intentions. And I just think it's a remarkable quote. Elia Martell and their children, Rhaenys and Aegon Targaryen, were brutally murdered during the sack of King's Landing. Rhaenys was dragged screaming from underneath her father's bed because she'd ran into his chambers because that's where she felt safe, and hid underneath the bed. And she was stabbed, dragged and stabbed 100 times by Sir Amory Lorch. And she was only 3 years old. And Aegon had his head smashed against the wall by Sir Gregor Clegane the Mountain, while Elia had to watch, and then she was raped, and then she was murdered. And that's what Oberyn tells the Mountain as he's taunting him, as he's telling him, "You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her children." Lyanna was found in a tower in Dorne by Howland Reed, and she made her brother Eddard promise her something unknown before she died. "I was with her when she died," Ned reminded the king. "She wanted to come home, to rest beside Brandon and father." He could hear her still at times. "Promise me," she had cried in a room that smelled of blood and roses. "Promise me, Ned." The fever had taken her strength and her voice had been faint as a whisper, but when he gave her his word, the fear had gone out of his sister's eyes. Ned remembered the way she smiled then, how tightly her fingers had clutched his as she gave up her hold on life, the rose petals spilling from her palm, dead and black. After that he remembered nothing. They had found him still holding her body, silent with grief. The little crannogman, Howland Reed, had taken her hand from his. Robert Baratheon became king after Jaime Lannister killed the Mad King to prevent him from blowing up King's Landing with wildfire, and it's very funny how people still call Jaime, the Kingslayer, as such an insult when it's literally like, well, would you have preferred death instead? Because Aerys thought that he was going to rise from the flames into a big black dragon and breathe his fire upon everyone who had wronged him. I don't really understand, was Jaime just supposed to have let that happen, you know? And here we have my personal thoughts on Rhaegar Targaryen, and they've actually changed a bit over the years as I've grown and matured. So at first I was really in love with the idea of Rhaegar and everything about him. I was like, oh, the classic misunderstood melancholy prince. But as I grew older, I could see the shades of grey. I could see where he went wrong, and I could see where things didn't match up and how it wasn't this great love story. But anyways, I'm going to continue and hope I make some sort of sense. So I think that Rhaegar was a good person, but pretty dense sometimes. He really wanted to help the realm, and many have spoken of how he'd have been a great king, what a gracious, kind, and intriguing person that he was. And let's not forget how everyone thirsted over him. Like 13 years later, this man is vivid in people's memories. Cersei keeps thinking about him and his beautiful eyes and his hair, and John Connington keeps thinking about him, and even Jaime, but not in a romantic way, just in a I failed him way and couldn't protect his family way. So yes, Rhaegar was conventionally attractive and had a nice personality to back that up, but he was a man obsessed. He first thought that he was Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised, which is the only reason that he was inclined to begin sparring and training with sword in the first place. He was amazing at it, yes, but he didn't enjoy it. It was his duty. Rhaegar is a martyr in the sense that he died for what he believed in and that he knew it was his duty. Much like his mother, Rhaegar knew his duty. And I've said duty like 3 times now. But then Rhaegar married Elia Martell and she quickly became pregnant. However, I can't really figure out what kind of relationship they had with each other, or if she fully knew about the prophecy or the lengths that he'd be willing to go for it. Then Rhaegar had a light bulb moment and thought, no, the prince that was promised isn't me, but it's my son, and the dragon must have 3 heads. Elia couldn't have more kids or she'd die, and Rhaegar, unlike most lords who, like I said, saw their wives as heir makers and, oh, it's God's will if they died and I can just reuse, reduce, and recycle them, he didn't force another pregnancy upon her. And Rhaegar is a confusing character because he's kind and caring, but he's also quite stupid and thoughtless at times. So tortured with his glorious purpose. He fell in love with Lyanna, it is said, and then it is said that he either kidnapped her and raped her, or that they were in love and ran away with each other. I, on the other hand, believe that Rhaegar saw Lyanna and used her as a means to an end, to create a child of ice and fire. She was a young girl, and he was a grown man who had 2 children and a wife, and he paid attention to her and said all the right things. I don't believe in their great love story. Rhaegar was far too pragmatic for love, and I think that Lyanna realized that he was also using her for the 3rd head of the dragon, and that must have pissed her off immensely. I don't believe Rhaegar was a kidnapper and a rapist, though. He's a very great character, and some of his actions were very stupid, and it led to his demise and the horrible deaths of his entire family. What he did to Elia and their children was unforgivable. What he did to Lyanna was unforgivable. So fanatic in his beliefs he was, so tortured. It really shows how a man obsessed sees reality different than others. But also I have to say Lyanna got off way easier than Elia and the children, who were really unwilling participants in this entire thing. They had to suffer the brunts of the consequences. Sure, Lyanna died in childbirth, but Elia had to be raped. Elia was murdered by having her head dashed into a wall, having to see her infant son, if you don't believe that he lived, and his young Griff, had to see her infant son's head smashed against the wall. Rhaenys Targaryen, a girl of 3, stabbed 50 times by Sir Amory Lorch. It's so sad to just read about their story. And that's it for today, guys. That was my rant about Rhaegar Targaryen and my personal thoughts about him. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Please comment down below. Please like, please subscribe, please put on post notifications. It boosts the algorithm if you comment, so anything you comment, it would be great. If I'm to give a prompt, comment what Targaryen you want me to do next, or maybe a Valerian or something. I know this channel is quite Targaryen based, but I mean Valerians are Valyrians too, so I can stretch to that. Hopefully I have my thoughts about the House of the Dragon episode out and that I made a video about that. But anyways, thank you guys for watching it again. That's it. Have a nice day. Bye.